The trail hand is the key, though.
Yes.
We'll just say this.
Right.
Trail hand, 3 things.
Correct.
That allows a trail arm to bend in 3 ways in the swing. That's it.
How good of a golfer you are is determined by how well you can connect your trail palm to lead thumb knuckle.
It's true.
I firmly believe that.
The more gear effect we get, the more natural speed you can create. But that firing mechanism of the trail arm and how that works is everything.
Yeah. Like if you're looking for the quickest fix for your golf swing, is close. Understand that the golf swing is 90% hands and arms. It used to be, like back in the 20s and 30s with Harry Vardon and Henry Cotton and all these guys, they were saying that it was 90% hands and arms. Where did that get lost? Like, why? Why did we lose that? How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to the Cause and Effect podcast, where we introduce the cause and effect relationships that exist in golf in relation to the hand, to handle, to club relationships. We got our compact clubs here, which is super exciting. We're releasing these on Valentine's Day. So big announcement there. What better day to announce the connection to your golf club and the importance of that than on a day of love and affection.
That's right.
So you need to show your golf club some love. So we're going to launch these on Valentine's Day, and every single one of them is going to have a Super Stroke grip on them, an exciting new partner with Claw. A lot of exciting stuff coming with them. We're going to try out their new wrist lock putter grips. Their new Synergy lines coming out. They're doing some really cool stuff. So excited for that. Yeah, these clubs are really nice. Like, we wanted to make sure that we didn't really spare any details. Like, every grip is the same. Yeah, exactly. Like, every grip is the same. We got our brand colors. You got our Claw logo. Yep. The final ones will have like grooves on them. They're going to look really nice.
Cut here.
So we're really excited about these. And we have another cool announcement too, that if you have a compact club, is actually going to give you early access to something. And we're not really going to say what that is in this episode, but stay tuned because it's going to be a big incentive if you have one of these.
Right.
Get early access, we'll call it. So that's all kind of beside. We want to really just jump into the swing though, because that's why you're here. That's why you're spending some time with us today. So we're really just going to talk about a lot. I mean, you know, our shtick, hand-to-handle to club relationship. Last episode, we really talked about how the fingers are working relative to the palm, is how the club is working relative to the handle. So to expand on that a little bit more, we're going to talk about how the trail hand and the lead hand are working in the swing and the role of the hands, right? That's like the big thing, right? Like the role of the hands, which hand is more important? Is it trail hand? Is it lead hand? Everybody's heard like, oh, my trail hand's just along for the ride, or I'm just lead hand, or most people are trail arm dominant. So we're just going to talk about the role of each hand, which one's more important. And then, we're just going to jam. Let's do it. So which hand's more important?
The trail.
Perfect. Okay. Why?
And the reason why, and I'd say it's like 75-25 more important, because in the swing with the lead hand and arm, its job really is to serve as like the pivot point for the trail hand and arm to work against and around. Okay. And what I mean by that is when we take the lead hand and arm back, really the lead arm is locked all the way until the lead arm gets parallel to the ground in the backswing and the follow through. So it never bends. And its job really is just to rotate. So when we go back, it rotates in a clockwise rotation.
Oh, okay.
And then when it comes through, like past the release point, it's going to unrotate in a counterclockwise rotation because of the release of the gear effect. Okay.
Yes.
So with the trail hand arm, the reason also that it's has a big role is that the trail arm bends in 3 ways. It's also like the feeling in the trail arm is that it's actually locked by pushing and keeping it locked like we do with the lead hand. But because when we go back, we want to lever the club head, like basically we'll say up, back, and around of the handle, right?
Correct.
The trail arm has to do the same thing, like in a sense.
Got it.
Right? Around the lead hand.
That's what the tour players are doing.
That's right.
Yes.
That's right. So let's just go through the trail hand real quick of the placement of it to the lead. So I'm going to use a strong grip. Okay. So we've talked about when we place the trail hand against the lead hand thumb knuckle all the way down, like along the lead thumb to the grip here, like the trail side, is where we're trying to place that. So to activate that, it's 3 things. So if I take the trail hand, let's say I take my trail palm, put it even to my lead thumb like this knuckle wise. And I have my thumb straight up. Now I'm going to go up with my fingers. So I'm going to be able to push down a little bit against that lead thumb knuckle.
Oh,
okay.
Got it.
It's almost like a little massage, like kind of. And then from
just
there,
letting it know it's there.
so it's like the up, and then we go back with the fingers. That's the extension. So I'm going to push to the side against it.
Oh, got it.
Okay.
So now the lead thumb knuckle knows you're there.
That's right. And then we're going to go around, which goes almost under like this.
Got it.
So then when I want to interlock my grip, or I can go baseball or overlap, doesn't matter. The trail hand pinky finger is in perfect, let's say like unity to like the lead hand index finger. So again, it's your choice of how you want to utilize the hands and connect them, but the trail palm to lead thumb never changes.
Got it.
Because once we get this, you have activated the 3 points that we have to use in the swing for the trail hand and arm to work properly, but also for that trail arm to go from bent to then, we'll say this, so let's walk through this real quick. So
you're giving it like a head start to do what it's going to do
so again,
in the swing.
We have the up, the back, and the around.
Got
okay.
it.
So now as I take the grip, all I'm doing from here is I'm going to also try to keep, like when we do the around part, I'm going to keep the trail index finger feeling wise just bent back. Like I have a rope and Ethan's pulling on it, trying to pull it back like this.
Get over here.
And as I go to grip, I'm just trying with like my bottom 2 fingers here to just curl the fingertips. That's really it. But I can almost take the club back like this.
Got it.
Because when I go back, the first thing I have to do is I'm pushing down, and then I'm basically letting this go around until it take away. This is all locked with the trail arm.
Got it.
And then from there, as I continue to push and then pull, I'm going to feel like I'm levering that club like we talk about, like up and back towards the trail tricep. And then from there, that gives us our perfect 45 reference. So that's how the trail arm is bending. Because again, we go up with the fingers, back, and around. We get this perfect ability to keep the trail arm when it bends at a 90-degree angle relative to our shoulder. And it's very important.
Okay, got
the
it.
elbow can't get out like this.
Got
it
it.
keeps it pinned in front of us. And that's how the club, so relative, when we think about like the handle to the club relationship, relative to the 45, relative to our chair, imagine this parallel angle right here, okay? So like level to the tops of the chairs.
Okay.
And once I set the club here, I'm at the takeaway. Now from there, if I just stay level to here until my lead arm, this would be like a lead arm parallel to the ground, 3/4 backswing position. I got my 90-degree angle between lead arm and shaft.
Yes.
That's it. And then from there, we bring it back down. Here's pre-impact. We're back parallel. Release it down and back to parallel.
Got it. And if you were standing up, that would be like clubbing with the hands at the takeaway, just at the trail shoulder on the backswing.
This is how we ride the 45. And this is why I go up, because it's a sideways sport. We can't swing on a 90-degree plane, right, relative to us, because it's too vertical, and we can do it, but the ball's not going to go anywhere, and your luck of hitting it even solid's not a chance
good.
barely.
Yeah.
We have to swing on the sideways angle, again, the 45. But the emphasis of this is that the trail hand, just to connect it properly to the club, has to be set in these 3 ways, which is pre-activating how the trail hand and arm, and even the trail side of the club, will say, has to work to ride the 45. So pre-activate the pressures properly here. Then the plane's already kind of getting in shape.
So you're almost like predetermining where that's going to go just by connecting
all
it properly.
All you have to do from here is utilize them in the same format you connected. Push down, set back, and around. That's it. So it's like push down, set back, and around. Oh, look where we are. Boom.
Wow.
Miracle. And then from there, it's like, there's the takeaway. And then from here, all we have to do is like activate the pulling up and back just under like the trail shoulder, we'll just say.
Just
okay, like back here. And that will keep everything parallel. It's all about the parallel reference here. Not too steep, not too flat.
Correct.
Just right here. And then coming
that's
back.
what we want people to really understand.
These are our
when you're
chair
in the chair.
videos. That's right.
Because we're going to be launching some content with the chair a little bit more. With the Compact Club, and we really just want people to understand like what you're doing in the chair is exactly what you're doing in the golf swing.
And we're gonna do some videos where instead of having our podcast mics and everything in our way, we're gonna show some videos coming soon of like what it looks like in a chair with no restrictions, so that we can add the torso rotation, but the head stays perfectly centered.
Drain the water.
It's like all it takes is a little bit,
and
all of a sudden it's like it's amazing how all of a sudden it's like, oh, that's like the like a John Daly backswing I could actually create with maintaining my claws.
Correct.
But the point is, though, is just understanding the references of the club here and understanding how that trail hand and arm influence is. And with the lead hand, again, it's just like your pivot point, right? It's like all it has to do is stay locked, rotate back properly, and then release back properly when you come through.
And it's similar to what we were saying with the trail hand. Like if you get that lead hand up, back, and around, it's already kind of it's preset to where it needs to be at the setup to then just do what it needs to do in the backswing. So
chances of getting the backswing right, if you get the claws activated in the 3-step process here, if you understand even the direction it's supposed to go, like faintly even, right? To like relative to the parallel here.
Yeah.
Like you're at like 98% there.
Yes.
I mean, honestly, but most people are lacking so much with the claw placement and activating the proper pressures that they are, I mean, really for most golfers, lucky to even be at close to 50%.
Then you're just fighting it.
Then you're trying to, in a sense, create this in the swing to try to, in a sense, resemble what we may know from like basic things we hear and see like of instruction, but we don't know actually how it's actually that perfect. And it just comes down to what we're saying. And that's why this is going to be such a useful tool for everybody here. Like once we launch these.
Exactly.
And again, then your relationship with the golf club and Dimples will be improving.
Yes, exactly.
Yes, everyone's going to be happier.
It's like it's a nice love triangle between your hands, the handle, and the club.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. So that's but like you said, really, and what it comes down to is you're giving yourself like a head start if you get your grip right, to do what you need to do in the swing. That's it.
Well, so when you think about like in our years of teaching, like most commonly when you see people, you get the bad grip, right? Like, lobster claws, we'll say this, okay? And when they go back though, the trail arm doesn't bend properly.
Yes.
Or it doesn't extend properly like in the initial part. So as soon as you see that fault, then you see the body being manipulated, then the hands have no clue of what to do even anyway.
Right.
But it's just like, just the simple understanding of like this to here, then back to here. It's like, that's it. I mean, it just opens everyone's eyes up. And it's just like, that's why we're, again, understanding why this is such a big tool.
Right. Exactly. And one of the big things that we see with a lot of our students and what we see with a lot of kind of teachers in general is that when they're teaching, they're seeing like this fault of like, oh, the club isn't like hinging enough. It's like, okay. And then they try to like create more hinge for their student, but it's like, well, why don't you figure out like why it's not hinging enough? Okay. Let's like take a couple steps back, go to the grip. Oh, okay. Well, there's the fault right there. Because your trail palm isn't connected to your lead thumb knuckle properly, you're not able to hinge the club. So see, like it all reverts back to the claws. It's always like the root thing. Like when we're teaching, it's like, okay, first thing, claws. Are they good? And if they're not, then we might spend like the whole entire lesson just getting that right.
Right.
Because we know all the things that it's actually going to create in the swing properly. Right. Like so many coaches are just making their lives way harder than it needs to be and making it harder on the students because they're like neglecting, they're missing like what's hidden in plain sight. Like just fix this, get the 3-step process, get that right. And then everything is going to happen in swing that needs to happen.
Definitely.
It'll just happen. It's like magic.
Right.
There's a reason that tour players are so meticulous when they grip the golf club on how they connect that trail palm to that lead thumb knuckle.
Right.
Look at Tiger.
You see with everybody. Every tour player does. You see them go to connect. Doesn't matter what grip type. You watch them from side. You see every tour player doing this. What is that? I don't care how you connect, like, your trail hand, pinky, and lead hand index, but it's more about the hook and the thumb and the pad.
Right.
You see these things, this regrip pressure like this, and you see this pressure like that.
Correct.
And so what we said earlier too about like the trail hand being connected, we want it to the lead thumb knuckle. Like that's the best placement for the unity.
Correct.
But let's just say, even if we had a lobster claw, the worst lobster claw ever, like this, where the lead hand is underneath the club, but you still had the trail hand pushing on the trail side of it, so it'd be like on these knuckles, you could still actually hit the golf ball.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because you could still control like what needs to happen.
Is controlling 75% of the swing.
When it comes to this, when it comes to how the trail hand and arm have to work. Well, again, the trail arm with how, again, it stays locked in the takeaway, then how it properly bends in its 3 ways.
Yes.
And like from there to the top, and then it maintains them to pre-impact. There's lag. So then from there, it extends properly to post-impact.
Yeah.
And then there it is. But that firing mechanism of the trail arm and how that works is everything.
Yes.
If you just get it right, like in a certain way with we talk about, again, like the up, the back, the around, you get the 45 degrees in the takeaway of the twist and the extension. We try to get to 90 degrees of extension and rotation at pre-impact. Like we talked about that in our power segment, right?
Let's talk about that a little bit, with where a tour player would be at pre-impact with this.
Yeah, so it's like if the trail hand, here's neutral, let's just say we're trying to get here at our grip. From there, it's like, here's the takeaway, here's pre-impact. So it's like trying to basically get like the fingers bent down like this as much as possible, trying to create that max rotation, keeping the pinch of the trail thumb.
So that's max twist
This
right
is
there?
it right here. So now from here, let's say that this is pre-impact to post-impact, which we'll say is like right here.
Just push.
I'm going to allow the trail arm to go from bent to straight,
right,
keeping the trail wrist cupped, and let it basically, we'll just say go to square, like to here. This is it.
Right.
And then we're hitting basically the ground. The ball's already been hit just before that.
Correct.
And then from there, the gear effect after will unrotate.
Yeah.
Basically, so we have 90 degrees, we'll just say, as like a good reference of the, around and the fingers bent back. And then from there, if we push down to the turf properly, like the natural gear effect will unwind you 45 degrees, which will allow the lead hand and arm, like we said, it needs to just rotate back in a clockwise format when it goes to the top, unwind in a counterclockwise. So it allows the lead elbow, when it does bend after the lead arm is parallel to the ground in the follow through, it's going to allow it to perfectly bend at that 9 degrees. So it's like, again, 9 degrees with the externals, and then boom,
right
there we go.
Exactly. So yeah, when you look at those tour players, when they're kind of getting that trail palm connected, that lead thumb knuckle, like you said, with the cat kind of like pawing the bed.
Yeah, that's right.
They're almost like revving their engine of their car, and they're getting their car like, okay, their car's ready to go. Like it's ready. Like red light, yellow light, green, boom, go, push, twist, do everything you got to do.
The funny thing is, imagine like out of the exhaust of the car, we got flames that can come out like nitrous boost. So once we get like the pads right, all good here, then to get the nitrous boost, it's like pushing down like this, like a little extra push. It's like vroom, vroom. Like, so it's like shooting that out, because like when we go back, then I'll say it's like we're doing the same thing. Like that's the first thing,
right? And
then we add the twist in the back.
Correct.
It's
like, but like in Mario Kart, like you don't want to start too fast because then your car like spin out. So it's like you gotta have a good blend, like we say. You can't just be like, I'm ready to go.
And then, it's like you can't
your car like spins. See, that's a good visual for people. Yeah. We're just trying to create simple visuals for you guys to understand like what's actually going on in the swing. And the big key is, again, just get that trail palm connected, that lead thumb knuckle. All the tour players are doing it. There's a reason that they are. It's not being talked about enough. That's why we're doing all this content. It's actually like one of the bigger things when we did our smart grip. We're actually going to, we have a spot for the lead thumb and then that trail hand with the hook and everything, but we're going to have a spot where your trail palm is pushing against that lead thumb knuckle and sensing like how good, because how good of a golfer you are is determined by how well you can connect your trail palm to lead thumb knuckle.
It's true.
I firmly believe that. Like if you're looking for the quickest fix for your golf swing, get your trail palm connected to your lead thumb knuckle properly. Get the 3-step process of the up, the back, and the twist, and then give your golf swing a head start to go in the direction it needs to go.
That's right.
There we go. That's everything. Like,
well, it makes it simple too. You activate your trail hand and arm in 3 ways. Like the trail hand is the key, though.
Yes.
We'll just say this.
Right.
Trail hand, 3 things.
Correct.
That allows the trail arm to bend in 3 ways in the swing. That's it.
Right.
The lead hand and arm like are working as a pivot point. The lead arm stays locked basically throughout your conscious swing, and that's it.
Correct. Exactly.
It serves as that pivot point for that trail hand. So
and
boom.
Somebody that does this really good, and to kind of segue a little bit into our plain and simple segment is Rickie Fowler. We're Team Rickie here, obviously. But what do you think about his swing in general? Because he is making improvements with Butch and everything.
Yeah. Well, I think that right now with what he's working on with Butch, which nobody knows really exactly what that is, I guarantee it's probably more concrete towards what we're going to probably talk about. But with his swing, he has a strong grip. His trail hand's a little bit, it's like
more
he has
neutral.
He has like, it's like kind of like perfect lead, trail hand like right there. But the big thing with his swing is that when he basically activates with the push down, it's perfect, okay? But he allows the handle to work inward a little bit. So the club head stays a little bit outward of the handle, and he pulls up. So he gets the perfect takeaway, again, just a little bit of club head outside hands, which is going to steepen the transition to the top. And then when he gets close to the top, he gets to like a laid off position, almost like bows the wrist back, even though, which he used to have that 3 times as exaggerated when he was young.
I remember.
So they've really toned that down.
Yeah.
But then from the top, he controls a lot of his plane, which is a little bit steeper, like opposed to the club head, working like, let's say more below the trail shoulder, like we're talking about like in between trail elbow and trail shoulder. His is more towards the trail shoulder, and he controls the release of it with more ulnar, almost like Phil Mickelson kind of.
Ulnar, just
like a little steeper plane,
down,
but
right?
really snapping the wrist down. And then you see that like the handle kind of rising to impact a little bit, and then you see that aggressive small gear effect just after impact, where the club head, basically like the toe of the club, is pointing at the target. We'll say, I'd say just a few frames after impact, right? And then from there, it's like, here's takeaway. And then he rides that and allows the body to release, which he does take, and he has a really good footwork. He stays very grounded in a sense. Great posture.
Why is he snapping down so much? Why is he doing that?
Because he's doing that because of the steeper plane. He's doing that as his way to basically try to control how the club head, like we'll think about his lag, okay? So again, we talk about trying to get more towards, let's say, trail elbow, so the club can release down, out, and around properly like this. If we think about with Rickie, he's coming in a little steeper, so the club's going to have a more dramatic downward, steeper attack. So to control that, he's utilizing the ulnar of like the pointer fingers down to control the toe, how it works down of the heel like this. So instead of pushing and allowing that to like create more of the scraping idea like we talk about with the heel to toe, Rickie is really like activating the toe down pressure, and it's a little bit more violent, which I think sometimes might get him into that kind of steeper kind of miss with the driver, especially. Like, he's a great wedge player because you can do that.
Yes.
But when it comes to the longer game, you can get a little bit errant.
Got it.
I think.
But he has a ton of like his trail. I mean, he does a really good job with his takeaway, like you said, of pushing down. And
correct.
We use that kind of visual of like the line on the hands.
Yeah.
And we used to use that a lot at our last job. His hands are going like below that line to start.
Correct.
Which we love.
So he has perfect takeaway parameters in that sense. Again, club head a little bit outside hands. Okay.
Which is okay.
But if I had really one thing for him because of his tendency, because of the big laid off move he used to have in the rerouting, we'll say is that I would like to keep his hands, instead of going inward, more straight back. Let the club head rotate basically parallel to the hands at the takeaway. Then from there, just do a very kind of neutral kind of move from there to the top where there's no laid off position. It's just perfectly on plane, more like basically our next advocate that we are going to be talking about.
Yes, more like Davis Thompson.
Exactly.
Yes, exactly.
So, and that's really...
I think that's what he said him and Butch are working on, is trying to get his hands higher at the top.
Yeah.
Which I like.
Because Rickie's got the great body movement. Like, he has perfect posture at impact. Like, if anything, he's a classic Butch guy where if you put a line on his... like the back, like off his like butt, and then like on the top of his forehead.
Yeah.
And like you look at his setup there, when he goes to the top and then comes down, he'll actually move towards like his butt will move backwards and his head will stay downward.
Right.
And it's like they're moving away to create the clearance they need, which is basically another reason why he can create room with his steeper move. With his body out of the way.
Okay. Which is why his footwork's so good.
Which he has a unique footwork. If you look at his lower body movement, like from pre-impact to post, nobody else on tour except maybe Brooks Koepka, I would say would be like the closest, because they don't really turn at all. They are just like trying to control the hands. The hands are taking over.
Okay, got it. Which they kind of have to.
Right,
because
absolutely.
Because of
the positioning and the way that they're using it.
Right, because of how well they're using that trail hand in the downswing too. They're almost like using it too good to where it's like so steep that it's like, whoa, we got to kind of back out of here.
Although, what's kind of cool though is that Brooks is more of the total like pusher and like keeping like it's all palms pushing and not like fingers down.
Correct.
Where Rickie's the opposite. So it's actually like the opposite ends of the spectrum.
And I think that's more the effect of because his grip's a little weaker with his trail hand.
True.
Like Rickie's a little bit more on top, so that kind of promotes more of that down.
Brooks more on the side, and he has more of that like little bit of shut at the top, but he just drives it like all upper body.
Correct.
Puncher.
He's utilizing what he should be, which is his strong upper body.
Right.
Yeah.
It's cool.
It's really cool. It is. It's cool to kind of think about the swing differently. Of like, how are these tour players doing what they're doing? Obviously, like we said, they have the perfect trail palm against lead thumb knuckle. We said that. Another guy we really like, Davis Thompson. I had fun watching him on Sunday.
Yeah.
Other than him leaving the pin in on 17, but we won't talk about that.
Right.
I thought that was pretty brutal. But man, he is like so snug against that lead thumb with that trail palm. Like,
really good connection. So
man,
I would just say, it's a perfect advocate of somebody using the trail hand arm properly in the swing. The only difference is that he doesn't really use any rotation much, like from his grip position. He doesn't like add that. He just extends back like this. So it'll be more of like a shut position. Yeah. But he pushes out so good and maintains it and blends that with a really good rotation of his body to where, so let's talk about this. So when he starts his swing, it's very noticeable that he has two things. He starts by pressing forward on the handle slightly towards target. Yeah. And then he sets into like his right leg. You can see him flex like his trail knee. It's kind of like a Henrik Stenson kind of preset. You'll see that. Okay. And so what he's doing is he's trying to like firm up that trail knee to brace into it so he can push against it. So like the initial move in the takeaways, he's pushing, like he sets the handle forward, really stretches against the handle like we talk about really well. That naturally gets the club head back of the handle good enough to where the face is matching his spine because he doesn't have a strong grip. It's like neutral to strong.
Okay, got it. Okay.
And then from there, as he goes up, the weight of, let's say he's shifted to the inside part of like his trail knee. Then he allows his weight to actually move towards his lead side. So at the top, he's like 60%. On his lead foot, but he's just maintaining his stretch pressure away and just pushing the whole way.
Still pushing with that trail palm against lead thumb.
He does we talked about like pointed fingers, down while still pushing in the takeaway. He just maintains that basically to the top. With again, just because he already like preset the handle forward, it just gives him a little bit of that rotation where it's easier for him to get the angle a little quicker than some of the tour players we're watching. Right. They kind of keep the elongated move until the very end in the transition,
like a Schauffele.
Which I like. Yeah. I like this guy's move better. I think it's easier. Just get the angle.
I would like to see maybe a little bit more face rotation on the takeaway.
Just a little, but again, that preset of the handle kind of move is where he's kind of getting that trigger. But I think that too, because he's able to really stretch and push against the trail knee, he's allowing himself to create enough width where it gives him even more time for the club head to work properly back of the handle. And then from the top, just to like perfectly maintaining the push. Little bit of pull increase and then just pushing straight back down. Very like we talked about the pump drill.
Yeah, pushing that.
We're driving that butt end down and out towards the target line like this until it gets parallel to the ground. And if you watch his club, I mean, you can just really see it with his claws. Like he is just pushing down so aggressively. And his leg work really from the top is very quiet. Right. Just a little bit of feet and knee, action. Yeah. Lead hip starting to work back to where the lead leg can post up and extend. And then he's in impact and feet are pretty much, we'll say they're like rolled, to the outside, like inside of the trail, outside lead. Really good footwork. But the idea is like really the momentum's going toward target. Yeah. Trail heel is pretty much on the ground. And then everything releases and he just maintains and rides that basically from, we'll say, post impact to the finish.
Right. He does a really good job with the trail hand against lead thumb knuckle. Yeah. And he keeps that. That's the thing, like for everybody at home, is that we're talking about the importance of this at the setup, but you have to maintain it. You can't like at impact, it has to be on there the same way it was at the setup.
That's right.
Because that is indicating that you're going to get the proper gear effect from pre-impact to post-impact. That's right. And then that's going to be a predictable ball flight every time. Right. If you have that good at the setup and then you come into the ball and now you're kind of flicking down with the fingers, now you're getting a bad gear effect.
That's right. That's right.
So that's so important. You keep that push, keep that trail palm pushing against that lead thumb knuckle. That's right. And then allow that trail arm to go from bend to straight, like we talked about last episode.
Maybe a little thing for some of our viewers here for some homework, when you watch the next golf tournament, or just go on YouTube and just search like a pro swing in slow motion and look at their grip at setup and then look where they finish. See if there's any disconnection in the hands.
There's not.
And I guarantee you're not going to find it.
If that bird, we talk about like the baby bird thing, right? Where you're trying to create like a cage with your claws to wrap around your bird. Right. That bird isn't flying out at any point or being squeezed at any point. It's constant. Like you got the cage. Yeah. Guess what? You got the cage here. You got the cage here. Got the cage here, got the cage here. You never let your bird fly away or squeeze it.
And that's again and that's the top tier of the best players in the world that are all doing this. Correct. Doesn't mean you're just tour player, just even those amateurs that are great players. Correct. Where they're understanding this in that way, whether they realize it or not. But it's the idea of like, that's what it demands of the golf club to basically be consistent. And that's it.
Exactly. Like you have to maintain proper connection of your hands to the steering wheel so your car does the same thing every time. That's right. That's it.
The club doesn't have like 50 different ways it can technically work and actually be consistent and productive.
Correct.
It doesn't work that way.
No.
We break it down into threes, and it's the simplest way to ever do golf because otherwise it gets way too complicated.
There's no way you could do anything like this.
There's no reason, right?
I mean, nobody could sit here in these chairs and talk about the golf swing like we are if you didn't like break it down into like these simple steps
That's
of
right.
like push, twist, back. Like everybody would just click away because there's no way to like visualize this and understand like the cause and effect relationships. So yeah, this is not easy. Like we say a lot, like you want to test somebody and how good of a coach they are. If you're wondering how your coach is doing as a coach for you, put him in this hot seat and see if he can handle these questions and like doing this. I mean, this is not easy because again, we're just trying to create like the best information for the people on the other side of that screen. So it's got to be the right visuals. It's got to be simple. And we're trying to explain rocket science in the simplest way possible.
But we created this, which makes rocket science simple in a sense for golf because it's more, again, right here in front of you. You can see the relationship better opposed to club being big. And like we just talked about, we explained, you know, the benefits of this trail hand arm, like the three ways it goes on the club. The arm can, you know, be utilized in these ways. And then all of a sudden we understand again why the trail hand arm are more beneficial in the swing than the lead hand arm.
It's amazing. Like I've seen it so many of my lessons where somebody comes in for like a swing assessment or an evaluation. And I mean, obviously the most like common faults that we see as coaches are like a lobster claw. So a lot of gap in between the thumb and forefinger, right? That's like one of the most common things. And then that gets that trail arm like on top of the club a little bit too much. And then now from there, the effect of that is like the inability to hinge the wrist properly, the trail arm not working properly. So the quickest fix as like a coach, I'm just licking my chops because I'm like, oh, cool. I'm going to get that trail palm connected to that lead thumb knuckle.
Right.
And now the trail arm's pinned under more. It's easier to hinge the club in the backswing. It's easier to get the trail arm to go from locked to bent to locked.
And so when you backtrack what you just said right there, when you said like the bent and then lock and then you stay bent and we're at pre-impact right here.
Right.
The whole idea again is though getting the trail hand and arm to fire and release all the lag that you've generated because it is really the key fire because it works around the pivot point of the lead hand arm. It just does this. Okay.
Yeah.
As far as the rotation part with the arm. So it's like that trail hand arm just work against it. So if you wind it up like this, it just makes the most sense of how then you can create the most amount of speed down the line because we're playing a sideways sport. Sideways down the line. So for viewers that maybe have heard this term of down the line, what does it really mean? If I'm standing in my chair like this, if you imagine your toes are like have a parallel line across them, like along them, right? And then if you imagine like through your club face, there's a parallel line like this, okay? So it's like you have your target line, which is the line through your golf ball, through your club, down the line. And then and that's like to the intended target. And then you have your toe line. So down the line is basically just saying that when we take the club back and we come down to pre-impact and we release, that we are trying to basically release down those two parallels. We're pretty much in between the two tracks.
Got it.
In between the toe line and in between the target line because when we start off, when we look at the distance of the handle here to the club head, right? The club head's a little further out with that target line.
Right.
Then we got our toe line.
Yeah.
It's pretty similar here, but it's like just in between it. It's like you're trying to release down those two lines.
Got it.
So when we think down line, it's really down the two lines or in between the two lines.
If a student hears, swing to like right field, that's not technically down the line. Why is that? Is that because that needs to kind of be in their mind where down the line is?
So most typically when we think of like golfers in general, instead of releasing down the two lines, they release inside or left of the two lines. That's the most common fault in golf of coming outside in, right? So when we talk about the 45 to the right, we're doing that as like a masking idea to try to get them to feel how the club head would be like here at pre-impact opposed to parallel. And then trying to be catapulted more like out here.
So we're trying to exaggerate to get it down the line.
Well, because too, to get the inside, like this rotation effect with the gear effect, like we talk about with the release, it's very important that people understand how much rotation there is in the lead hand and arm and the trail hand and arm, like how those work together. Because if you don't have that, then it's impossible to create speed.
Got it.
Right?
Right.
So when you think about down the line, it's like if I'm coming in like the ball over the top like this, how much rotational speed effectively am I going to create like this or like this? Either way, we're not looking forward to that.
The golf ball sees that and he's like,
Well, and here's the interesting thing too, is that most golfers, because again, golf is sideways, most golfers tend to slice. They swing on this outside in angle because in general they swing more on a 90-degree plane than they do a 45 because it's not natural technically.
It's not natural.
Right. So the idea is that instead they aim more left, thinking I'm just going to play my slice, which is only actually escalating all the problems because it's making the path more out in. Basically, like the same because they're not changing their hands because they don't know what's going on with the grip and all.
Exactly.
But if they just actually understood how to, let's say, take the toe line instead of being like parallel and then actually point a little bit to the right and then forward press the handle, try to get that grip, of course, more on the proper trail side of the club with the strong grip, and then just try to swing more in this direction instantly, like within one shot. They could take literally like a 40-yard slice and turn it into a 20-yard draw.
Because you're hitting the inside part of the ball.
You're changing all the dynamics that are necessary to make the ball do what it needs to do.
Correct. So like when we say down the line, really, in order to go down the line properly, you got to go through the inner quadrant of the golf ball to get down the line. Because the sideways angle, so like the inner quadrant is technically like the middle.
Right.
In a sense. Right. On a sideways angle, the inside part is the middle.
That's right. Well, here's what we have to also remember.
Which is like, most people hear it, they're like, wait, inside is middle. What?
Well, imagine if you took like the ball and you imagine it here and imagine like a line going like through the middle of it, like the sphere, right?
Right.
So it's like when you come up to it, it's like you want to hit the inside part because again, if you come in and hit it like square on the back and then try to project that energy perfectly, it's not as good as if you actually hit it more from the side because there's more of this natural gear effect of how the handle is like in a sense slowing down and the club head is catapulted around it. The more gear effect we get, the more natural speed you can create.
Right. So if you want people to get more distance, and I tell this a lot like to my students, I'm like, when you're over the ball and you feel like you've got like your good grip and you got your little preset with the handle pushed forward, in your mind, just like look at that inside quadrant of the ball. And you are probably 9 times out of 10 going to hit that inside part of that ball because you're almost like telling your brain like, okay, brain, I'm going to drive that trail palm at that inside quadrant. And that's going to give you the proper effect of the proper gear effect.
If you know where the destination is where you have to hit the ball. And then you also know with what we talk about with where you need to be at like pre-impact and post-impact. Right. And the ball's just in the way with that quadrant. I mean, we're lined up like the chances of everything failing is because probably we're like mental. Then we got to work on the mental side more.
Yes,
which we'll be there for you for that too.
We will.
But the point is that I mean, your chances of failure are very limited.
Right.
Like so, it's or minimal.
This is why like this is a good transition into hot takes. This is why we like the stronger grip. Because you're already on the side of the handle. Like we're saying, golf's a sideways sport. Right. And we're trying to swing on this sideways angle on the 45, which is like the hula hoop at a 45-degree angle relative to vertical. But that's when we say the 45. But the easiest way to get the club, like if in your mind, it's like, okay, get the club on this 45. Okay, well, I know that if I get my hands on the side of the handle, that's going to get the club on that position. So if you take your hands and you go straight up and down, it's like, now I have to build in all of these things to get the club on this angle. And then now it's harder. It's like your trail hand doesn't like this pivot point to work with. It likes this pivot point to work with because it's just an easier hand to work with.
So
they're like doing the same thing.
Yeah, here's a good way to imagine
hot take. Yeah. Strong grip creates more distance than a weaker grip. Sorry. I had to kind of lead into that.
Effectively down the
line.
Boom.
Yes.
So, and this is the best way I think I can describe it is to showcase it from a standpoint of if I have my trail hand and it's 3 placements that we need, up, back, and around, right? And then I place it with my lead hand. It's like the lead hand is vertical like this and like flexing like this way as the trail hand's going this way. If I have a proper strong grip, and I take it and I go like on top like this, now I can better connect like my hands in a unity. It's like the lead hand is rotating the same as the trail hand, opposed to the lead hand being like in an up and down position and the trail hand being here at the side. Yeah. It's like we have to rely on this action opposed to this action. Just they're in the same formation. So because we're playing a sideways sport, we're already skipping stones at setup, basically, with activation of pressures to really skip that rock.
Yes.
Now we twist it back. We're on the plane already. Boom. We release it on the plane. That's it.
That's it. But I just had that visual when you said that of it's almost like the trail hand's like getting excited. He's like up, back, and around. And he's like, okay, lead hand, like just mimic what I just did. Like we're ready to go.
Yeah, and he's
then
like over here, like
and the lead hand's like this. The trail hand's like, now you need to do the perfect in-swing move for me to do what I need to do.
This is Dimples looking at him like from a standpoint of an outside observation. Like,
yeah, that's kind of like
what are you guys doing again?
Yeah, that's the visual I just had when I was thinking about that. But the trail hand needs like a companion.
Right.
Why not get your trail hand to start the same way why not get your lead hand to start the same way your trail hand is, right?
Same unity.
Like if this V
palm to palm,
yes.
palm to palm.
Yes.
Not mixed matched palms in a sense, like not up and then like this.
Yeah.
It's like just match them with the same rotation. Then the hands and the arms together will work as a consistent functional unit, but more on a down the line consistent path.
Gotcha. And then how does that create more distance? So,
because too, we talked about the gear effect, right?
Yes.
So when I'm more starting already on the trail side of the club and I lock these claws in, once I take the club back, it's naturally putting my my lead thumb and my trail palm more on the trail, like on the underside of the trail side of the club here.
Got it.
In my backswing, I get to pre-impact them here. When I push down, there is more of a natural force being created, like a unwinding effect.
Okay.
Unwinding like gear effect with the club head speed, because hand and arm rotational speed,
yes,
is like one of the, I mean, that's the key to creating max speed. Like Rory has one of the highest, right?
Exactly.
So it's like the more we twist the club and we have all the levers right.
Yes.
If we let it untwist naturally, it's going to create more speed. Then if we have more of the weak grip, get the trail hand arm doing the same thing. We get the flexion here. The amount of radial is limited, like the push and the pull is limited. We're utilizing it more for the playing, but the actual effective like motion is limited by like half.
Gotcha.
And then there's not as much twist. Like, of course, I mean, as far as like when we think about the twist around, it's like half.
Correct.
And then it's about the same as far as like flexion to extension.
Yes.
Okay. But it's just, the motions are kind of working in a sense a little bit against themselves. And we've talked about like with John Rahm, he does it perfectly. He allows the club to rotate properly in his takeaway, which is why I think he is doing things great.
Yes.
And he started off with a stronger grip when he was younger.
So he knows gear effect.
That's why we're also saying too, for most of our viewers here or like all of our viewers, we'll just say, start by learning the strong grip. And then learn how, if you want to possibly go to neutral or whatever,
correct,
that's good. Weak, consult us first.
Yes.
Personally.
Consult your professional.
Send us your video to be like, is this good enough? It's like, I think we should probably stick with the other for a while until we master these things.
It's like when you take a medicine, it says on it, like, consult your doctor before taking this medicine.
That's right.
It's like, consult your doctor before choosing a weaker grip because the side effects can be like
very detrimental to your physical and mental health.
Right, exactly. The Dimples, the golf ball, would not recommend you going down the weak grip route. And it's just not as good of a companion for the trail hand.
No doubt.
But yeah, the big thing is just we're playing a sideways sport, trying to hit the inside quadrant of the golf ball. So make it easier on yourself.
Right.
Get the stronger grip. Get the handle maybe a little bit more forward because, as we say, more forward shaft lean makes it easier to swing inside out and hit that inside quadrant of the ball. And then from there, just let the trail hand do what it's actually doing right at the setup, which is the up, the back, and the around. Right. Yeah, like just give yourself the best chance to do what you're trying to do in the swing. If you don't start the way we're saying with this trail hand connected elite thumb knuckle,
you're already pointing in the wrong direction.
Yeah, you
have to manipulate.
It's like your car is facing like backwards and you're like, now you're going in reverse as your competition's going forward. It's like, oh gosh, now I got to like flip my car and do this crazy bow move. And like, it's like, what are you doing? Like, just start with your car facing in the right direction. It'll go there.
Right.
That's a cool visual. I like that.
Golf's hard enough. Start and like minimize the manipulations, right? Make this game as easy as you can because it can be broken down simply like we are and learned and actually performed really well. It's just a matter of, again, learning these steps.
Correct.
And then just getting rid of all the other stuff because it's not like important with all the things you hear about.
Yeah, exactly. Like stop worrying about all the stuff of like, oh, am I rotating my body enough in the backswing?
Get your claws smart.
Yeah. Yeah, it's almost like with what we're going to relaunch with all of our content coming up and with the exciting stuff we have coming with the Compact Club is you're educating your claws on what they need to do in the golf swing. And then You just connect them to the club and they're already educated. So now guess what? Your golf club's educated. It's like if your claws are educated, your golf club's educated. And then now your swing is going to reflect that, right? Like if your claws are not on here right, I don't care how well you think you're swinging the golf club, it's not going to be consistent and repeatable. And that's what we're really just preaching with every single podcast that we do. It's the hand to handle to club relationship. And pretty soon, everybody's going to have one of these compact clubs and other things that are going to allow you to use this thing properly and get this relationship. So yeah, this Valentine's Day, this is the relationship you need to be worried about. The connection to your golf club, this relationship deserves attention on Valentine's Day. So that's what we're really going to bring to light. And they're going to have these really awesome super short grips on them.
That's right.
So yeah, we're done. We're done ranting. Hopefully this all made sense. Yeah, if we have any questions about anything, just hit us up in the comments.
Yep.
Join our Discord. We're all over social media.
Yep. Just keep following.
We're taking over. Like this industry needs change. There's a reason handicaps are not getting any better. There's a reason Jonathan and I are starting to change things because we feel like it's our responsibility. Like we've tested it.
Yeah.
We know this is the secret. It's hidden in plain sight.
It is.
Hopefully when you're watching golf now and all the exciting golf that's coming out with the Netflix series, you see all these things that we're talking about. Like we're not making this up. Every tour player is doing this.
That's right.
It's right in front of you.
Mm-hmm.
Stop listening to everything else that you're doing in your swing. Focus on this and we promise you're going to get better.
It's true.
So yeah, all the links are in the bottom. Thanks for watching and we'll see you in the next one.
Yep.